This game really is something special. I'd heard about it a couple of times since its release, and had never really given it a proper try. And then a few years ago, I decided out of the blue to give it a go. And my god, is this game amazing. It tells a truly touching story about identity, purpose, and connection, whilst having some of the best video game dialogue I've ever experienced. The writing, gameplay, art style, and music combine to create a masterpiece that simply not enough people are talking about. Citizen Sleeper takes place in what we can assume to be the far future, and you play as a sleeper. Sleepers are people who have temporarily sold a copy of their consciousness to a corporation called SNARP. This copied consciousness is placed within an artificial body called a sleeper, which is then put to work for SNARP for the duration of the contract, while the original person who sold the copy is put into a form of cryostasis. You play as a sleeper who, along with some other sleepers, fled one of the SNARP facilities and have landed on the Eye, a ringed space station with a complicated history run by a number of complex factions. You have to survive on the Eye and decide what you want to do. Run and hide from SNARP, who are currently hunting you, or stay and fight. You meet a colourful cast of characters, get a truck ton of world building, and truly connect with the station and the life that's brimming upon it. The story is beautifully told, and I'm amazed that it builds so much tension and immersion despite the simplistic layout of the gameplay design. Every character is so unique, both in their aesthetic design and personality. I can think of almost any character and at least picture what they look like and what kind of person they are. Tala is this kind, optimistic bartender who sees the best in everyone. Ethan is a brutal bounty hunter who only cares about money. Lem is a humble shipyard worker just looking out for his daughter. Sabine is a mysterious doctor who's hiding her sketchy past. Their characteristics are demonstrated perfectly in their character design and dialogue. Everything feels so natural. I never once felt like there were any filler characters or areas. It all served the purpose, and I loved every second of it. In terms of gameplay, I've never played anything else quite like it. The main gameplay mechanic revolves around rolling dice to complete activities, which reward you with story progression and or material rewards. You have different risk levels to each activity. Safe means that no matter what you roll, you won't suffer any loss to energy nor condition, which we'll cover in a second. Risky means that if you fail, you could lose a little bit, and dangerous means you could lose a lot. So it's always safer to keep 5s and 6s for dangerous, 4s and maybe 3s for risky, and 2s and 1s for safe. The game also functions on cycles, which are basically days. Once you've completed all of the activities you could possibly complete, you end the cycle and begin the next one. Sometimes you have to wait a few cycles to be able to participate in an activity, and sometimes you'll be warned that an event will take place after a certain number of cycles that you have to try to prevent, or at the very least prepare for. Certain activities may reduce your energy, and your energy also depletes each cycle regardless. You can regain energy from buying food from different bars and restaurants, and some activities will give you back some energy too. Your energy level affects your condition. Basically, SNARP designed sleepers to be reliant on stabilizers that only they can provide, and without them sleepers eventually die. Your condition represents your health bar, and when it hits 0, what happens is the opposite of good. Thankfully, your condition goes down quite slowly, and the Eye has stabilizers, they're just quite costly. Money, or cryo, is earned through completing certain activities. It may just take a while to save up enough to buy a stabilizer. As your condition depletes, you gain access to fewer and fewer dice each cycle, so there's an added incentive to get a stabilizer, as a low condition can seriously affect what you can do each cycle. It also provides an incentive to get the money to afford a stabilizer sooner rather than later, because if you find yourself broke with access to only 2 dice, you may be well and truly fucked. There's some good news though, because you can upgrade your sleeper to help your odds of completing activities and earning materials. Upgrade points are earned by completing objectives known as drives. Depending on the type of sleeper you picked at the beginning, whether that be machinist, operator, or extractor, you'll have advantages and disadvantages in specific upgrade paths. At first, you get a +1 to your dice roll in a specific category, then you get additional skills if you choose to continue to invest in that branch, although if you play well enough, you'll get more than enough upgrade points to fully upgrade basically the whole grid. However, going back to drives, depending on your actions, you can fail drives, especially if they're time sensitive. When you fail a drive, the game just keeps going, no matter how significant that drive was. This is what adds yet another level of tension to the game. Your choices truly matter in ways that I've never really seen before. Here, because of the emotional connection that you build with the characters and the setting, your choices can really affect that emotional connection. You build true friendships with these people, and your actions can affect what happens to them during their time on the Eye. Not only that, but in trying to be as realistic as possible, you can put hours of effort and resources into a drive, and the outcome may not be what you expected. A perfect example of this is with Lem. Now I want to issue a minor spoiler warning. If you don't want anything spoiled at all, please skip to this part of the video. You meet Lem as he's working on a ship that's going to take him and his adopted daughter Mina off the ship to hopefully a better life for both of them. The corporation involved with the ship's construction have promised that some of the workers will be able to get a ticket to board the ship and leave, and so Lem is hoping that he can get a ticket for him and Mina. So you can get a drive about helping with the ship's construction so that Lem and Mina can leave. You spend a number of cycles using valuable dice to complete the ship's construction, all the while keeping an eye out for your energy and condition levels, as well as any other possible time-sensitive drives. Once the ship's construction is completed, you, Lem, and Mina all go to the announcement of who's going to board the ship. Lem is incredibly excited. He's worked his arse off for this opportunity to provide a better life for his daughter. Suddenly, they start mentioning unique ID numbers, which none of the workers have heard of. As it turns out, the corporation lied. They promised workers a chance to board the ship as an incentive to continue the grueling construction, only to give those ship spaces to the executives of the company. Lem's reaction is heartbreaking. So much talk of hope and the future vanishes in an instant. At that moment, I had never felt worse completing a drive the whole time I played the game. It was awful. And when you visit Lem afterwards, he's just so downtrodden. Seeing one of the more hopeful and optimistic members of the Eye become ruined by corporate greed is just crushing. That's what makes this game realistic. Even when you succeed, it may not look the way you hoped it would. You're not the only person in this world. There are other people here with their own motivations and desires, whether they be destructive and selfish or selfless and altruistic. When completing the drive for Ankita, she'll pop up when you least expect it to intervene in a situation for her own selfish reasons. She even does something extremely controversial at the end of it, completely outside of your control. On the other end of the spectrum, meeting Castor in the game means that he'll pop up much later on to lend a hand. You're not the only person with plans here, and I love that even despite the limited movement and perspective, the Eye feels like a living, breathing place that you're just a part of. You're not the main character here, and I love how the game is able to achieve that effect. Resource management is a huge part of this game too. From stabilizers to scrap components to Yatagan data to fungus, the game encourages you to prioritize exactly which resources you want to stock up on to complete certain drives. For example, the Yatagan subplot requires a lot of data that you get from the cloud, so you can invest in interface to be able to collect data easier. Crucially, the incentive to complete these drives really comes from your emotional connection to these characters. I really connected with Emphas and Tala, and so I prioritized their drives over others. Sure, you can make the argument that completing the easiest drives first to get upgrade points quicker should be the priority, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but when it came to the long-term drives, I fully committed to what I thought was important, which is why I chose Emphas, Tala, Lem, and Mina over, let's say, Yannick. And what I love is that the game encourages this. You craft your own experience. From the beginning, the question of what you want your life to be is a catalyst for your choices throughout the game. The backbone of this setting and its inhabitants is the art style. It feels so comic booky. It reminds me of All-Star Superman a little bit, or at the very least, some late 90s, early 2000s sci-fi design. It's colorful and detailed without feeling overwhelming. All of the characters feel like they've lived full lives and have had trials and tribulations. This aesthetic even extends to the menus. They managed to make what feels like a technologically complex universe into a palatable experience on every level. Even with the simplistic level design, each section feels so distinct, using small differences in color palette and layout to underline the different histories and cultures of the Eye. The greenhouse feels sleek and clean, whereas the low end feels messy and crowded. The flotilla is broken and disjointed, and the complete other end of the station, the shipyard, has a frantic organization to it. So much care and detail is put into this game, it's astounding, especially considering this almost bird's eye view that you have throughout the entire experience. And what punctuates the story and the art style is the excellent soundtrack. It's beautifully melancholic whilst remaining somewhat hopeful. It always feels like even through the sadness, the loneliness, the desperation, there's a glimmer of hope for you to work towards. One track that really underlines this hope is Matsutake. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It opens with this specific flavor of melancholy before introducing a synthetic guiding light, as if to say, I know things are rough, but if you keep moving forward, it will get better. Special shout out to other tracks like Signal Haze, which is kind of a banger, Yataghan, Sleeper, and Possible Futures. The soundtrack really highlights the beauty of the universe and the loneliness of perpetual introspection and uncertainty. I have literally only one minor complaint about this game, and that's the endings. Without going into massive spoilers, I got a number of options based on my choices. I could either stay on the eye, or I could leave in a number of different ways. I chose initially to stay on the eye simply because I didn't want to leave at that exact moment. The credits rolled prematurely, and then moments after the credits rolled, I then left the eye in the way that I wanted to actually leave. It was really bizarre, and I just felt like it should have been done a little bit differently because it really confused me at first. I thought I'd logged out the ending I wanted, but then when I saw out that ending, I got it and felt relieved. But that's the thing, this game is so good that the only complaint I have is about a super minor issue with the endings. And it's basically just a nitpick. That's how good it is. Please go and play Citizen Sleeper. It's a masterpiece, and I don't say that lightly. Now, for those who are familiar with this game, you'll have likely heard about its sequel, Starward Vector. Originally, this video was going to be predominantly about that game, but I changed course partway through for two main reasons. Firstly, the video was taking way too long to make, and I want to maintain a fairly consistent upload schedule. And secondly, I really don't like Starward Vector. Much of the original video was going to be criticizing the new gameplay mechanics and locations that I think really bogged down that experience, resulting in an ambitious yet disappointing sequel to what is a brilliant first game. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up as one of the reasons why I changed course is because I simply got tired of being so negative. My Arcane video was quite negative, my Mirror's Edge video was quite negative, my FBC Firebreak video was quite negative. I just got a bit tired of constantly criticizing, and I wanted to praise something instead. I had a blast making the Tower Wizard video, and I wanted to get that feeling back. That doesn't mean that I don't think the second game should be criticized, because I think it should, nor does it mean that I won't be criticizing anything ever again. I'm just in a period right now of wanting to be a bit more positive, especially considering how easy it is to constantly criticize the media we consume. And so I decided to not talk about it and just focus on how much I loved the first game. With all that being said, I love Citizen Sleeper. It's able to transform a relatively simple game loop into a blueprint for questions about survival, community, and freedom. It builds a fascinating sci-fi universe with intriguing characters, whilst also telling a beautiful story covering themes that form the cornerstone of science fiction storytelling. A beautiful art style, a satisfying dice roll mechanic, incredibly well-written characters and dialogue, a catchy yet melancholic soundtrack, well thought out decision-making principles. This game is just amazing from beginning to end, and I couldn't recommend it more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.